Tuesdays, didn't it? I know we were talking about. How you doing, buddy?
All right, we'll go ahead and
Hi, Shell.
we'll go ahead and get this thing started here. My name's Phil Smith. I'm the Director of Communications and Government Affairs for United Mine Workers. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank our retirees, especially for being here and everything they've done for us the last several weeks. This is really to talk about the legislation that's these ladies and gentlemen have been working on for the last several years now, and we appreciate everything they've done. And with that, we're going to start with the two lead sponsors of this legislation. Senator Manchin, if you could make a few remarks, please.
Let me just say that, first of all, we wouldn't be at this point today if it wasn't for all the men and women behind us that really have given everything they have. Amen. Yeah, so thank you all. We keep repeating. This is not a partisan issue. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. We're all on the same team here, Democrats and Republicans. We're fighting for what's right for this country. If it wasn't for the people, and I've said this, every one of us should say a prayer every night for a coal miner, what they've done for our country, what they've given us. The energy, the greatest nation on earth, superpower of the world, if you will. You know, they've done the heavy lifting their whole life, and all they're asking for is just let me have what I've earned and what I've paid for. It's not what you're giving me, it's what I've paid for. Every contract was negotiated, every contract. Every ton of coal had money set aside to pay for what they've earned. And now people think like we're giving them a gift. We're not asking for anything. Just give us what we paid for and what we earned. That's all they're asking for. I want to say this, that in the last 2 days, I've spoken to President Trump twice. He called this morning, Mr. President, again. And in 2 days, talking to him about one issue, the coal miners' benefits. One issue. And he says, I want you to tell him this morning that basically I'm with him, I'm behind him, I will do everything, we're going to get this thing finished. We're not talking about temporary. We're not talking about a temporary fix. I know this, and I know how this works. This is one time. We've gone down this road before. We're talking about a permanent fix. I wish we were doing pensions too. We should be getting them both done at the same time. We're kicking the can down the street on the pensions. We'll come back and fight another day, but we must have a permanent fix for miners' health care, and that's all we're asking for. Give them what they've paid for. Give them what they've worked for. Give them what they've earned. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank all of you all. Thank you for what you're doing. God bless you, and thank you, my colleagues.
And then would like the Chief House Sponsor, Representative David McKinley, please.
Thank you. Thank you all. So when I look back behind me and see the folks that are here, it just makes me feel good because my grandfather was a coal miner, and we're speaking when I think back of what he did back in the early years, to be working in the mine, to see these guys still fighting. A promise was made in 1946, and a promise needs to be kept. It's as simple as that. That's what we need to do. We have to be honorable around this institution over here. People said they were going to get those benefits, and we've got to make sure they get those benefits. But there has been a fight constantly on this. There are numbers across this nation that are trying to say this is a bailout. This is no bailout. This is what these men and women are entitled to. They've earned. They were promised back in 1946 to get those benefits. So we've got to finish the job. Getting this thing permanent is our number one objective. We've got to make sure that we can get that accomplished. I think we're right on the verge. We talked with Mitch McConnell. I was with the president yesterday. We think it's on the edge, right there. It's about ready to happen. But we're not going to adjourn this weekend without having a commitment. Those men and women deserve it, and they're going to have it. Thank you. God bless all of you.
Thank you.
Good job, David. Well done.
And next, Senator Capito, who's from her days in the House, has been working very hard on this legislation. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I am pleased to join the chorus. Senator Manchin, thank you for your leadership. Congressman McKinley on the House side. But as I was shaking hands and learning to know new folks that I see here today, it's not just West Virginia, although we always think if you're in West Virginia, you think it's only about West Virginia, but it's not. It's Pennsylvania, it's Illinois, it's Alabama, it's other parts of Kentucky, Ohio. This is really important to the fighting men and women that we see behind us, and really to all of us. It's an issue of fairness is the way I see it. It's a fairness doctrine that we need to keep our promises. It's a fairness opinion that when they sign their contracts, when they went into the mines, hard work, and we heard a lot of what some of the health issues have been because of all the hard work. They knew at the end of the line that they were going to have permanent health care and pensions. And to pull that rug out from under them is exceedingly unfair. And the one thing I've learned through this journey with the president and others is these are fighting men and women here. That not only have many of them fought for our country, they've fought through their jobs to work hard every day, and they fought to make sure we here do the right thing and treat them fairly and justly and the right way. And so I joined the voice of permanent health care. I wore something, everybody says, oh, you look so bright today. Well, I'm feeling kind of bright today and optimistic because of all the hard work that these folks have done to work and fight and choose to ask the country to be fair to them and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Capito. I'd like to now one of our lead Democratic co-sponsors in the House of Representatives, Senator Mike Doyle from Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mike Doyle.
Mike, sorry, I didn't
That's
mention-
okay, Shell. Mike Doyle from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm the son and grandson of steelworkers. And I want people, Joe hit the nail on the head. When these contracts are negotiated, these men and women give up pay to get benefits. That's part of the negotiation. And in that negotiation, instead of some salary, that money instead was supposed to go to health care. And this is a dirty, dangerous job that these men and women do all their lives. And they understand how important health care is to them. It's not just black lung, it's a whole bunch of other things too. And their health care benefits are important to them. And this was negotiated and promised to them. They paid for this during their negotiations. So like Joe Manchin said, and everyone up here today, and Joe and Dave McKinley and Shelley, these are people I've served with a long time. They are good friends. This is not about Democrats and Republicans. This is about doing the right thing for working families in this country. And both parties are going to stand here today and demand that we keep the promise that we made to these men and women and make sure that they have their health care. And I know today's about health care, but we haven't forgot about pensions too. And that's important too. And as Joe said, sometimes, you got to pick and choose your battles. We got a big one today, and we're getting near the finish line, and I'll believe it when it actually happens. Okay, so I don't want to jinx anything, but don't think we're forgetting about the other piece of this too. These men and women deserve their pension benefits too, and we're going to fight for that too. I'm proud to be standing here with Republicans and Democrats, friends all, that are champions for working people in our country. That's the backbone of the country. That's why there's a middle class in the country, and we're going to make sure we don't lose the middle class in our country.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressman Mike Boss from Illinois actually has a personal connection to this. Congressman.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank these sponsors. I know they've been working on this for a long time. Understand I've been around this house for about 2.5, 3 years now. But I do have a personal connection. My family on my mother's side were all coal miners. They were around when these contracts were negotiated. My grandfather, who passed away several years ago, but when he was about 14 years old, he went to work in the mines. And at that time, the companies would pretty well just bury you if it need be to keep production up. But they moved forward and they organized together, and in good faith they negotiated. And they got these, it's not a huge benefits, it's an opportunity to survive on into years, health plans, pensions that you can live on at your retirement age, and in good faith they did this. And it's an obligation that we have to make sure that we deliver on making sure they keep those benefits. And let me tell you another thing that's vitally important. I know we've got a temporary fix that we're talking about this week, but I agree with the senator and everyone up here. We've got to go with a permanent fix, not only on health care, but on the pension. We've identified how we can do it. We just need people to join with us and move forward so that we can get this problem fixed. Because every couple years, what we're doing to these people is putting them in a situation where they're not only are they worried, they're worried to a level that it causes them health problems. Folks, that's not good. That's not right. They did their part. The men and women went down in those mines every day, or if they were working in strip cuts, they worked above ground. But they worked around a very dangerous situation. And all they asked for was these benefits which they negotiated. I'm glad that we're going to be moving forward with this fix for right now, but we've got to make it permanent. I look forward to working with all the members up here and our other colleagues. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue that we must deal with, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Brown is on his way, but in the meantime, it's my pleasure to introduce the President of the United Mine Workers, Cecil Roberts.
Well, my role today is a little different than it has been because we have been from St. Louis to Western Kentucky to Fairmont, Southwestern Pennsylvania, Charleston, West Virginia, all across this nation rallying for this cause. And then it culminated here on September the 8th in front of the Capitol when we put 10,000 UMWA retirees and their spouses and their family members here on a day that was so hot that they couldn't hardly make it through the day. So my role right this minute is that I don't want to mess this up. And I've done that before, but let me just tell a quick story and then get about the business of thanking people. In July of 2012, 5 years ago this July, we had our first bankruptcy in West Virginia, also in Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky, and in the Midwest with Patriot. And quite frankly, we didn't know which way to turn, because it was clear to us that the first proposal that they were going to make was to eliminate our pensions, eliminate our health care. And what we did in a small group, I said to the people there, I said, we're not going to take this. We're going to stand up and fight. I'm just not real sure how yet. I said, I do want you to do one thing for me. I said, I see ministers here today. I see deacons here today. And I see people who belong to church all across West Virginia, Appalachia, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Pennsylvania. Go back to your churches and speak about this and ask people to pray about this. And I want you to know today that I'm a little different than most people you've met along the way that's labor perhaps. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe that our union's been touched by the almighty hand of God, and that's why we're standing here today. Now, people can make fun of that, and people can say I don't believe that, but that's what I believe. The other thing I'd like to say is I'd like to try for a moment here to give voice to those who can't be with us today. Since that first meeting 5 years ago, and it won't be 5 years until July, 26,1974 pensioners have died. We're losing these people at $500 a month. Before we finish this press conference, another coal miner will die or his dependent will die. But I want you to think about this. One of the things I'm most proud of as we gather here today is every single one of those miners that died, they had a pension. And if their widow died, they had a pension. And I want you to know they had the best health care in the world. And we don't apologize for this because coal miners and their dependents and retirees need the best health care in the world because we've given up our health for this nation. So I want to say those who died with great dignity, and they had the best health care in the world. But I also want you to know that this is the most patriotic bunch of people in the country. I don't care where they're from, coal miners or patriots. They've gone to every war, World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, and now the Mideast. We have stood for this nation, and all we're doing now is asking this nation to stand with us. But now let me say how proud I am to say that I'm standing here with these representatives. Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, moderates, you name it. And some say there is absolutely nothing that Congress can do in a bipartisan way. But I want you to know they should look at what's going on here today. When it's the right issue, people can absolutely come together and stand with the people who work for a living in the United States of America, who've mined the coal and produced the energy that has allowed this nation to be the strongest force on earth. They produced the coal during the war times that allowed us to win 2 world wars and win the Korean War and to be very competitive on a worldwide basis economically. And coal miners have given their all for that. And today, we're not really asking for much other than what we've earned. And I've got a proposal as to how to move forward from here. You know, I'm not so sure there's anything wrong with having hearings and votes out in the country. I know we've had hearings in West Virginia before. So when we get ready to start talking about the pension issue, got miners here from Alabama with me today, and I know where we need to have this first meeting. The number 7 mine in Alabama, you get on an elevator and you go straight down 2,000 feet. Then you walk off the elevator and you get on the track, on the railroad track, so to speak, and you ride a man trip 3 miles. I submit that we should have the first hearing on whether people ought to have pensions right there. What's that motion you guys make when you don't want to have to debate things? I move for unanimous consent. See, I don't know much, but I know one thing. If a motion for unanimous consent was made there, it would pass. But let me just take a moment to say how proud I am that the entire West Virginia delegation was very diverse group of representatives that stood up with us, and thank you so much. I want to thank every coalfield representative and the people who have connections to the coal fields here that have been joined with us. I have gotten calls. One of my favorite calls was from Ron Wyden, a senator from Oregon. There's not a lump of coal in Oregon unless it fell off the coal car when it went through the state, but he stood with us through this. And I'm going to do something I never thought that most people would think that I would never say. But I want to thank Majority Leader McConnell for his willingness to allow this to happen, and Minority Leader Schumer. And I understand how the process works here, Speaker Ryan. I'm man enough to say that we appreciate the willingness to allow this legislation to be considered and move forward. And Minority Leader Pelosi, none of this could have possibly happened and can happen without their leadership. And we've got somebody here, we've got a celebrity here with us today, and that's the great senator from Ohio. Hey!
I'm like the guy across the room.
We've already spoken.
Well, they told me the celebrities come late. So the senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown.
Cecil, thank you. I remember so many of you, and particularly in T-shirts, were standing over there on that really hot day last summer. And then was it February when you were standing over here? It was a lot colder and you had on more than T-shirts. But it's the fact that you are here and you are swarming this Capitol. And when those awful letters were sent out in October and November saying, sorry, your health care is going to end at the end of December. And then when the Senate, because the Senate leadership wouldn't move, in spite of Shelley's efforts and Joe's efforts and Mike Doyle's, all of us in the House and Senate, those letters went out again, and the fact that you have been here and put the kind of pressure on leadership is why this has happened. I got a letter. I got a letter from Eastern Ohio where a gentleman wrote, "I'm 72 years old. Put yourself in my shoes. What would you do?" And the fact that so many of you are here in these T-shirts, that Cecil's out, that all of you are around, and you have really forced members of Congress to, as much as we can, as they can, to put yourself in their shoes. And you've made them think about this. Speaker Ryan, we think we're moving him. I think that when I think about this, and I think about all of us that are standing here, that are lucky enough to represent you in the House and Senate and have these titles, all of us get government insurance, all of us have taxpayer subsidized health care, in that any of us would have the gall to say, well, we'll take the insurance for us, but sorry about widows, sorry about retired coal miners, we're not going to act. Well, the fact is, you've reached them. We need to be a country that values hard work. We need to be a country that respects the people who do it. That's what we've got to do within the next 36 hours. You've got great allies up here, but it's happened because of the efforts of all of you as mine workers, as activists, as spouses, as families, as people who love this country. So thank you so much.
Any questions?
We have an 11 o'clock vote, as you may know. Yeah. Okay.
Over here.
Well, I mean, I would say that we feel very, very confident. But I think maybe it was Congressman Doyle who said, I'm not going to declare victory till I see it written on the bottom line. And so we've kind of been down this road a little bit before in the past. And I think we all have a natural feeling of very positive and more than optimistic. But until it's signed, sealed, delivered, it's not going to be ours. So we want to make sure we don't jinx ourselves, I guess.
Let me just say,
Keep the pressure on, too.
Let me say real quickly that some people want to go home quicker than others. And I think those of us who are committed to what these men and women have produced for us, the life we have, we're committed to stay here until it gets done. So I think they know that. The House and the Senate both is resolved to basically, we're not leaving until this is completed. Now you can take that any way you want to take that if you know the process here. There's no need to talk about anything of a shutdown. We're not talking shutdown. Just stay and do our job. That's all we're going to do. So I think they know that we're committed to that. And we're going to get it done. And I think, yes, it's not done until it's done. But we are so close to getting it done.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about your conversation with the president this morning. What did he say he would?
He just called out the clear. We've been talking, and I know he's talked to all of our representatives, and he's been supportive of the coal miners. He knows how they've supported him. And he says, I want you to make sure you tell them. I said, you want me to tell them today? Because if we meet, he says, yes. He says, tell them that I'm doing everything and will do everything I can. I'm behind him. I said, Mr. President, this is the time we need you to help push it over the line. We're there. We just need to push it over the line. A phone call to our leaders on both Democrat and Republican, McConnell and Schumer, and basically Ryan and Pelosi, would be very helpful coming from the president.
Did he agree to do that?
He's agreed to help every way he can. So I assume that that's part of the, you know, we're all going to be at the White House here at 2:30. He says, everybody coming? I said, well, everybody that I know is coming. So we'll see what he'll put the hit on everybody at that time.
This sounds a lot like what happened last December. You guys were saying you were willing to stay until permit fix got done, but then it was just an extension until this month. So, I mean,
We got jammed.
yeah, but what's the difference now? I mean, if there's going to be a 20-month or a 4-month
No.
extension, then are you guys all prepared to vote against the omnibus?
We don't think it'll come to a vote without a permanent fix. We don't think it'll come to a vote without a permanent fix. The permanent fix will be in a vote.
Senator McConnell finally has signed on, co-sponsored,
Introduced it, yeah.
introduced the bill with the permanent fix. He wasn't there back in December. Speaker Ryan, we're hearing more good things today versus 3 months ago coming from the Speaker's office. Senate Democrats have been solid on this from the beginning. House Democrats have been solid on this at the beginning. But and there's been a lot of bipartisan support. A lot of Republicans, McKinley and Doyle and Capito and Portman have been helpful all along. But now we have Republican leadership in both parties. It looks like.
What party do you think I'm in?
Did I say you're Republican? Well, you were 20 years ago. You were once some years ago.
He's not a good baseball player either.
Compared to what, right? So no, I mean it's different now, but we're not certain until it happens, and we're. You want to say something?
The holdup is basically the holdup basically is, it's not a holdup, okay? The negotiations is to pay for. That's all, just to pay for. We have many pay fors, so this thing will be paid for. Just which one do they decide they want to use? That's where we are.
That's from the House. You understand? I think you touched on a minute ago. I'm chairman of the Coal Caucus, so we're representing all the states. We've had input from all of them on this issue. But what we were talking about, we missed it. We've had it twice. We came that close to getting this thing resolved over the years. This time, I think we got a difference because we've got the leadership more on board. I'm not as concerned. I think it's going to happen on it. I think we're going to be adopting, and hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, there's going to be a permanent. Simply because we've come so close to getting this on a permanent fix in the past. When we came up at 14 and 15, we saw that possibility. I think we're going to achieve it this time. Leadership of the House and the Senate are now on the same page. Now let's finish the job. Thank you. He's right on the edge of that. What they're worried about now is this pay for. And we spoke again this morning. I think he said that we know that's our objective. That's what we're trying to achieve. We just got to go over the pay for. I have not seen it, the pay for as yet, but as a result, he's saying that's what he wants. That's his objective. A few years ago, I didn't hear that. Now I'm hearing that. That's my objective as well, but we got to go through the pay for. So I think we finally got both sides, both House and Senate, Republicans, Democrats, all on the same page on this. Yes, I was trying to say that before to you that I wanted a permanent fix. What I said, we cannot have a shutdown over this. People, if we've got to get this, I don't want to blink at this point. At this point in my life, we don't blink. We're trying to get the permanent. Let's get the permanent.
No.
No. If you do, you're blinking. What we have to say is, if all falls apart, and I don't think it's going to, not after the conversation we had this morning with the Speaker. I think we're going to be just fine. Thank you.
Every senator who's been involved in this, Hatch, McConnell, Schumer, Manchin, Capito, Portman, Casey, and I, all of us have said permanent. All of us in both parties, leadership, Finance Committee, everybody in the Senate has said permanent. They've spoken on it. They've introduced bills. They've been there for months or some shorter period. A lot of us for months. So we're confident of Ryan because we trust Democratic Congressman Doyle and Republican Congressman McKinley to make sure this happens. But the pressure, we need to keep the pressure on the House to make sure they do it. The Senate's locked in. The House is close.
Well, the thing about the Senate, you have, as you said before, you have McConnell, Majority Leader McConnell, has not only agreed to support it, he's put a piece of legislation in, which is what we've been working on. And also the Senate has agreed on the pay for. The House now, Paul Ryan has agreed, as David said, and Michael, that he's agreed to having a permanent fix. He just wants to have a comfort level with the pay for. So we've got 100% here, 75% here, and we're just basically working this out. And we need to stay here until we get it done. And I think that's what we're talking about. So we feel good about it. 1.3. 1.3. Yeah. That's a permanent fix. Well, we had pay-fors at AML. We had pay-fors for AML. We had custom users fees. There's been an array of different things we've put out there that's been used historically before. And it just depends on who has the last say on the comfort of where it goes. Pension, we'll come back to fight that as hard as we're fighting this. It should have been done now. We understand that. We're not happy about that, but we're basically working to put this one behind us and starting, because if not, pensions go down a slippery slope starting today. Every day we put pensions off, we go down a slippery slope. It makes it harder and harder. So we have to fix that. But we understand there's an awful lot of pensions and problems, and we want to help everybody. He's on board now as long as we don't touch his AML money. Hey, we're going to have to go vote, gang. Yeah, we're going to have to go vote.
Take care. He's in committee. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Alabama. Thanks, guys.
I know what the hell's going on.
We won't forget you ever either.
You got to call them the way they are, right?
You understand?